Every kid has a dream of what they want to be when they grow up. Whether it be a doctor, a pilot, a firefighter, or a teacher, our minds were always set on a futuristic goal that we hope to eventually attain for ourselves. And we were always told by our parents that in order to be successful, our school studies must be the first priority. So, in utter determination, we took their advice and used it to help guide us through some of the simplest years of elementary and middle school to some of the most challenging years some students may ever face. High school. Now, it was in high school where I found that there are two types of students. There are those who lose the initial enthusiasm for learning, are aimless, and struggle to find goals worth sticking to. There are those who keep their emotions to themselves and allow their failures to define their abilities, therefore do poorly in school. But then we also see students who do exceedingly well in school. Students who create their own businesses. Students who go into top colleges, and students who turn their passions into something impactful. How can such widely different outcomes be possible? Well, some may say it has to do with innate ability, the zip code you grew up in, or the school you attend. I propose another theory. I believe one of the biggest predictors of a student's success is 1, our source of inspiration. 2, the type of goals we set for ourselves. And 3, the people we choose to surround ourselves with. Many teenagers struggle with articulating and realizing their full capabilities. And many times in my life, I have found myself going through that same battle. I was born in New Jersey, and in the middle of my 2nd grade year, I moved in with my grandmother. I was moving from one school to another, and at the time, my father was not living with us. Because of this, I had a hard time making friends. At the same time, I started to dislike school because I could no longer connect what I was doing in classes with the greater purpose of education and what I enjoyed doing. When I moved to Delaware, I then attended 2 more schools, both during my 2nd grade year. And by then, I was extremely introverted and unmotivated. The frequent transition and turbulent home life further diminished my internal motivation. In my freshman year of high school, I prevented myself from succeeding in most of my classes. And I did not use the study habits, note-taking, test-taking, and test-taking skills I had been taught. And by the end of the year, my grade point average was not where I wanted it to be. Because of this, I realized that not being interested in school was not going to benefit me. And even worse, I knew how my poor performance would affect my siblings. Now, I'm the oldest sister of 6 siblings, and as a result, I'm always conscious of how I behave in front of them and how I spent my time with them. One day it hit me that if I continue to show apathy towards school and my goals, they'll be quick to follow in my footsteps. This realization motivated me to become the person that they would always look up to. Making my parents proud has also been a big factor in motivating me to strive for success. I think at times, especially as teenagers, we tend to forget to look at our parents as people. It is easier to consider them as our financiers, our cooks, and our cleaners. But they can also be our cheerleaders, our mentors, and our teachers. When my morals low, I have to remind myself that my family is always watching, and we are more than just roommates. I tell you this because in the beginning, I mentioned that what separates high-achieving students from low-achieving students is their ability to see the value in the things that are already around them especially when their personal goals aren't enough to withstand challenges. Which brings me to lesson 1. Lesson 1. Know the people who are in your corner and use them as your inspiration. Most importantly, share your goals with them. Speaking of, the next realization I encountered throughout my journey of becoming a high-achieving student was how unrealistic my goals felt. I kept noticing that each time I set long-term career and college goals for myself, it was hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. For example, it felt hollow to be talking about wanting to become a writer when I kept receiving low scores on my essays. But I allowed myself to create small goals, and instead of it for being the sake of becoming a writer, it then became about getting one grade level higher in the class per marking period. I then connected these goals to action steps. For example, I found an area of improvement in this writing, and I narrowed it down to a more specific goal, which is coming up with a better thesis statement or getting feedback before the deadline. By allowing myself to create small goals, I was able to enhance my skills in the class, increase my grade, and validate that I can aspire to whatever college or career goal, so long as I knew the right goals to set. So lesson 2, create more realistic goals for yourself. Treat them each like stepping stones. Just don't forget to take that first step. One of the major goals I accomplished was getting accepted into Teen Sharp, a prestigious college program that helps students of color get into one of the top colleges in the country. When I hit the milestone, I knew I was about to be catapulted. No longer could I be seen as a poor-performing student. I had family members looking up to me, lofty goals I was being held accountable to, and now was the time to see how far I could really push myself. At first, I felt an overwhelming sense of imposter syndrome. Some of my peers have come from the most rigorous high schools. Some have overcome incredible obstacles. One in particular immigrated from Venezuela without her family. I watch as she uses her life experience to alter her own trajectory and is now working on a project to help orient future students that come to the US. She's being an advocate for others that she never had for herself, and her success leads me to lesson 3. Lesson 3, find a community of people who encourage you to aim higher, and make sure you are giving back to that community so that you are anchored in something greater than yourself. If it helps, think of your 5 closest friends. If they're not smarter, more ambitious, and/or more generous than you, they should be. At Teen Sharp, I have found my group of 5, and they're always encouraging me to give it my all in everything I do. The only thing standing in the way of these poor-performing students is their ability to apply these 3 lessons. But some responsibility has to be placed upon ourselves to problem solve and take advantage of the assets we have in our community and within ourselves. And once we do apply these 3 lessons, we'll become a super version of ourselves. One of my mantras is a quote from Elizabeth Edwards, who once said, "She stood in the storm, and when the wind did not blow her way, she adjusted her sails." No matter how many times life storms deter us from success, and when our goals seem less tangible, we must all learn to manage our sails, because our dream is waiting for us. Thank you.